Welcome back to LX News. I'm Ashley Holt. The Fourth Amendment of our Constitution, it protects U.S. citizens from unreasonable searches and seizures. In essence, that means that we should all be protected against law enforcement searching our homes, cars, businesses, etc., and or taking anything they find when investigating a crime, including taking us without probable cause. But attorneys in Illinois argue their clients, protesters supporting the Black Lives Matter movement, had their Fourth Amendment rights violated when they sat in jail for days without a chance at a bond hearing because, essentially, they weren't arrested during business hours. AKA, they were arrested on a Friday evening and, well, nobody wanted to work to hear their cases on Saturday or Sunday. The argument being it's wrong that the amount of time potentially innocent people sit in jail cells in an Illinois county depends on when they're arrested. A local paper called the Rockford Register-Star reports the initial court filing in this case was dismissed because a district court noted a judge does actually sign a probable cause statement within 48 hours of a person's arrest. But plaintiff attorneys argue judges do so without the person accused and their attorneys present. So they call that gesture, quote, constitutionally inadequate. The big picture question here is what rights does a person have once they've been arrested by police when it comes to seeing a judge? And it's all connected to the idea of an initial appearance. Now, this is the moment when you see a judge about your case after an arrest. You learn what your rights are and what charges you face. But this appearance is also important because it triggers the constitutional right to representation in court. And it's the first moment when someone who is accused can contest their charges. In many states, it's also the first opportunity to get back out of jail. But the amount of time you spend sitting in jail, it varies from state to state. And like the lawsuit in Illinois claims, people can suffer real-world consequences while they wait. So here to update us on where this case stands now and why it's important to fight in the first place is Pam Metzger. She's the executive director of the Deason Criminal Justice Reform Center at Southern Methodist University in Dallas, Texas. Pam, you have been researching this long before this Illinois case was present, but can you first just update us on where the Illinois case stands now? I know there was a hearing recently.
Sure. There was an oral argument in the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals. That's a court just one level down from the United States Supreme Court. Seventh Circuit heard oral arguments, and they pressed both the plaintiff's lawyer and the defendant's lawyer, that would be the state, of course, pretty hard on a couple of key questions. And so now the Seventh Circuit's taken the case under advisement, and they'll issue a written opinion.
It's like a judge to a court to another court, so that's why I wanted you to explain it and not me.
Moving up the food chain.
That's exactly how I think about the court system. Okay, so let's talk consequences, though. Like, not to boil it down too much, but let's talk about why this is bad, as you have found in your research. Because unless you're in a situation like this one, it's hard to imagine what the real life implications are of sitting in a jail cell. People might say it's a couple of days. What's the big deal? But you're arguing that it is a big deal. So in your research, you found consequences of the initial appearance crisis. Can you go over some of the big ones here for us and some of the ones you think have the biggest impact on people?
Sure. Let's start with the one that I think most people think about and talk about, which is bail. The reality is, in most places, and in Rockford County, it's certainly true, you can't make bail until you see a judge. So every day that you're in jail, every hour you're in jail without seeing a judge is an hour that you could eliminate on cases, especially like these cases, if the court would just make sure that you got to see a judge on time. But there are other really significant consequences that I think we tend to overlook. We can start simply with basic questions about people's lives. If any of us stop and think for a minute, what do I have to do today? Those of us who have children or elderly parents or work obligations or pets, what would happen if we disappeared for 48 or 72 hours? Imagine the chaos, the damage, the injury that could happen to all of the people in our lives. Add to that the possible loss of employment. Employers are not going to be real sympathetic that you didn't show up for work because you were in jail, even if you get right out the next day. There are physical risks when you're incarcerated. Jails are dangerous places. They're vectors of disease, certainly in the time of COVID-19. Respiratory illnesses spread rapidly in jails, but they're also places that have a lot of violence. People are raped, people are killed. You can add to that one other consequence that I think people may not always understand, which is that the injury is not just in delaying you getting a lawyer if you're too poor to afford one, but it's also what you can't ever recover because of that delay. Think for a moment about every security camera you see when you're walking through a store or you're at a gas station. Those are recordings on a perpetual loop. they tend to be re-recorded every 24 hours or 48 hours. What that means is that if you get a lawyer on Monday, you were arrested on a Friday, and you're accused, say, of robbing a grocery store, and you say, oh, I'm going to go get the security tape. You tell your lawyer, go get it. I wasn't at that grocery store. That's gone. There is no way to recover that security video. There's no way to recreate who was on the street that day. Evidence disappears, memories fade, and just that delay alone can be catastrophic if an innocent person is trying to demonstrate, hey, you've got the wrong person.
Yeah, and I think that is the perfect way to add context to what's a day or so. Not that sitting in jail is fun for a minute, let alone a day or two, but I think that that really paints that picture perfectly. I want to go to something else that I found interesting in your research, which is that this changes depending on what state you're arrested in. So problem number one you pointed out is the time of day matters and what day, but now you're telling me that where it happens matters. Explain why it's different depending on what state you're in. What we're looking at here are the purple states, 24 hours or less is when you can get an initial appearance. You have 2 to 7 days in these lighter states like California, Texas, Louisiana. No firm deadline, which I think is what is the biggest fear here, is all of these states in deep red. So why is there a difference here? Why is that allowed?
Well, you start with the idea that the United States Constitution provides sort of a floor for what kind of rights you get. States can give you more, but they can't give you less. The United States Supreme Court has never said how long the state can wait before it brings you to court after they arrest you. We know, and that's what happened here in the Rockford case, that a judge has to review the basis for your arrest within 48 hours. If there's not an arrest warrant, police can't just hold you. A judge has to bless it. But the Supreme Court has said that judges can do that ex parte, meaning in secret, out of court. Nobody's there to attend to it. So without any federal regulation of this problem coming from the United States Constitution, the states have been left to do it on their own. So Illinois is a particularly interesting case because the Illinois law says that after an arrest, you're supposed to be taken without unnecessary delay before the nearest and most accessible judge in that county. Of course, whether the judge is accessible is entirely a matter of the court's decisions. It's local rules and local practices. Yeah. The judges here in Rockford County, whoever sets their court calendars, they've made a decision that court's going to be held Monday to Friday. You get arrested on a Friday, too bad, so sad, we'll see you again on Monday. Yeah. That's not justice.
Pam, what is your fear? Because you obviously have been looking this up for a reason. What do you fear will happen if this goes unchecked or without change?
Sure, I think it's already happening. What we see are this kind of snowball of consequences. Some of them I've already laid out, but I think the ones that really we miss in a lot of these conversations is that for people who are stuck in jail in these circumstances, and a Friday to a Monday is not the longest we see, right? We see people sometimes a week, sometimes even much, much longer. The system forgets about them. What we worry about is that it creates, among other things, a coercion. You spend a weekend in jail, you come into court, and in some places, I'm not saying this happens in Rockford, but in some places, after a weekend in jail, you're pretty prepared to do almost anything to go home.
Thank you for bringing this issue to so many people's attention and coming here and explaining it to us. We appreciate you.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.